Welcome to the Wide Orbit demo, where today I will show you around the multi-view accounts payable and accounts receivable modules, and specifically we will be talking about the ingestion of AP and AR invoices. We're going to use the standard AP and AR transaction templates to upload, but in real time this process will be automatically scheduled. The AP and AR invoices will be created at the same time from the platform data sent to Multiview. The AP and AR dependency will use our standard AP hold voucher workflow, which will place the AP invoice on hold until the AR invoice has been paid or the AP invoice's hold status is manually removed. The AR payment of an invoice will automatically remove the hold on an AP invoice that is dependent on the AR side. The invoice will then be ready to pay once the hold is removed on a check run or an EFT run, and then we'll get into some AP and AR inquiries that can be used for reporting. We're going to start with the accounts payable standard interface for creating AP vouchers or invoices. Again, this process would be done automatically, so no manual intervention will be required. We will create some standard code upon the ingestion of the data from the platform, and that will create the accounts payable invoices and the accounts receivable invoices at the same time. Here I'm demonstrating the normal process for uploading our standard invoice template using the AP interface that's already embedded in the product. You can see as the interface is completed, it's created a batch of 5 invoices with a total batch amount. Next, we'll take a look at the AP workflow screen. This will be where we can monitor any of the AP invoices that are on hold and awaiting payment on the AR side. I'll filter by today's date so we can see the 5 invoices that were interfaced in with the standard upload. Any of the details can be seen on the right-hand side panel. As I scroll through each one, you can see the details change. We'll come back to this screen after we've looked at the AR side. So again, we're going to do a standard upload. The standard upload process in today's demo will use the same concept as the AP side, an AR invoice upload template. Again, keep in mind this will be done automatically upon ingestion of the data coming over from the platform. You can see here an AR batch has been created, 5 invoices with a total batch amount. If you wanted to view it from here, you could. Now that we have 5 corresponding accounts receivable invoices to the AP invoices, let's just quickly glance at the workflow to-do list again. You can see here each of the descriptions is waiting AR payment. So let's take one of these AP invoices, copy the vendor ID, and create a cash payment on the accounts receivable side. The cash payment will be manually recorded with a batch, and the cash payment, once applied to the open invoice on the accounts receivable side, will automatically release the hold on the AP side. As I enter the data here, you can see the amount outstanding, so that can be a partial payment. For now, we'll do a full payment on the invoice. Once I hit Save at the top, notice that the transaction status of the invoice and the check have been closed and fully applied. If it's a partial payment, it'll say partial payment. I've posted the batch. Let's go back to the workflow to-do list. I already have it open, so all I need to do is a refresh, and we now see that one AP invoice has come off of the workflow because the hold has been removed. Let's follow that through with a voucher inquiry or AP inquiry. I'm going to use the vendor ID, the date created of today, and we'll see the transaction on the AP side. So here's our invoice. The voucher status is open, meaning it hasn't been paid yet, and the posting status is posted. This is ready to be paid on a check run or an EFT run. So now that we have seen how an AP voucher will automatically remove the hold once the AR has been satisfied, let's turn our sights to manually removing the hold or overriding the AR process. So the workflow has an approval and a rejection. We also could send it for review or forward it on for additional comments. This would be assigned to anyone that you have designated, or it could be multiple users. So we can see we can use the approved check mark there to process the item, and now it's come off of the workflow to-do list. Again, let's follow that through and see the actual invoice from the voucher inquiry screen. We're going to use the drop down for the search on the vendor. And this transaction is also in the open status but posted, and therefore ready to be paid on a check run or EFT run. Now let's turn our sights to some of the inquiry techniques that can be used for reporting the AP invoices. Statuses are very important in Multiview. So we're going to focus on the voucher status. The first one we'll take a look at is open, and this means that there's open invoices that have not been paid. They are probably awaiting a check run or an EFT run. We've come back with the query results for all open AP items. We can use some of the grouping and sorting techniques to organize the data a little bit more. We can add some subtotals on. So at this point we've grouped it by company with multiple companies in the system, and we've subtotaled the invoice amount by company. Another inquiry that we can do is vouchers that are on hold. So these would be the invoices that are in the AP hold voucher workflow. So they either have not been released manually or by the accounts receivable cash received. Again, we can report on these with a grouping by company or maybe by due date to see when the due date is for each of these invoices based on the parameters you have set up on the vendor. Now let's do one more search technique, and this time we can demonstrate here how to save queries. So if we run these queries quite often, the posted status and the open vouchers, we want to run that on a regular basis. We can save this as a default or save as and give it a name. So these would be ready to pay invoices, and that's what I'll name the query. Once I hit OK, we'll see it display on the left-hand side under our Saved Queries section. So those can be pulled up at any point in time. You don't have to put the parameters in repetitively. We can clean up the screen for any fields that you want showing and any that you don't. We can move the fields around. So this is all based on the user's preference. Next, we'll take a look at the Accounts Receivable module. We'll use the AR Transaction Inquiry first. So this is an inquiry view of all transactions, and we can use the parameters here, such as transaction class, to look for specific types of transactions. In this case, we'll use the invoices. Again, we can save this query if it's something that will run often. So the open AR invoices are using a transaction status of new and unapplied, and that means that there's been no cash payment applied against any of these invoices. We can see the amount of the invoice, the amount column, and the outstanding amount is exactly the same. There's supporting detail panels on the right-hand side, so we can see any additional information for that transaction. Let's take a look at another inquiry. Let's do the partially applied. So these are invoices that have a cash payment applied, but it's not in full. And again, we can see the amount column for the invoice amount, and the outstanding amount now is different because there's partial applications. The history panel supporting details on the right will show you any invoices and the applications of the cash. And you can see the difference as we go through each of these transactions of the applied amount to the invoice amount. This one particular transaction, you can actually see where there's been a credit note applied as well. So there could be a cash application, or it could be a credit note applying to an invoice. Now let's take a look at some closed, fully applied invoices. In this case, you're going to want to put some date parameters in, especially as your database grows. Too many transactions will come back in your query. So I'm going to use the date of at least January 1st and forward. And you can see here, these are fully paid invoices, no outstanding amount. Again, the history supporting tab on the right-hand side tells you how many cash applications have closed this invoice. There are several menu items at the top in this screen that allow you to record further information on the transaction or do additional queries. The next important screen to take a look at is AR Credit Management. This is a summary screen that we can use the data analytical tools built right into the query technology. We're going to run a query on only active customers. We can always apply customer types when doing the customer setups, so we can group like customers. And in this case, I want to see only customers that have an outstanding AR balance greater than 0. So on the left side are all the customers listed. As I make the detail panel smaller, you can see here we have an aging column for each aging group that you would like. We can also apply credit limits to the customer. Any of the grouping and sorting capabilities are of course fully functional here. So if there's a credit limit and the customer is over its limit, we can actually group by that detail and then expand the individual groups to see who is over their credit limit and who is not. Now I'll remove the grouping and turn our sights to subtotals at the bottom of the screen for each of the aging buckets. It's just a right click to put on a summary running. Now we can look at any of the individual companies here. So Adirondack Corporation, we're going to view the transactions right from the AR Credit Management screen, which will open up the AR Transaction Inquiry. So here's a list of all transactions for this particular customer, and we can see the outstanding AR balance of $161,000 matches the balance outstanding in the AR Credit Management. So this is the detail behind that outstanding balance. We'll group by the transaction class, so now we have like transactions grouped together in order to do some analysis.